Okay, hi guys. So I keep telling myself I'm going to do more long form videos, and I keep not doing it because somehow I keep making these 15 to 20 minute videos and then it takes me a long time to edit. And I was like, Lauren, you could just make 10-minute videos. Why can't you do that? And it's because I like to yap. So what I figured I could do is I could start spilling some of the lore. Because this channel is called Lore with Lauren because I somehow have a lot of lore. And I figured I can make them several part episodes if I wanted to. So we're going to start with, I figured some of the lore, some of the unhinged lore involves men. When does it not? Men have a way of creating, men have a way of creating lore, you know? So anyways, I'm going to start with a very distressing situation, which was my first all-consuming crush on a boy. It was tough. It was a tough time for me. So let me give some context. I grew up in a very restrictive, high-control religion home. It's not as bad now for my younger siblings as it was for me in some ways, but I grew up under a lot of teachings of people like IBLP, or organizations like IBLP, ATI, a lot of people who kind of run in that vein of things. We dressed extremely culty, especially back then. My little sisters would wear Amish dresses and stuff, and I was edgy because I was wearing denim skirts that covered my knees and t-shirts. I was edgy. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of how I grew up. And I was my brain was like a little sponge, and I just really wanted to do things right. I had a very, very hypersensitive conscience. So one of the main teachings that I was exposed to that is mainly talked about by girls in their 20s and 30s in these circles, or at least it was talked about a lot back then. But it's this very weird concept that having a crush on a boy is basically satanic. I remember I used to teach this Bible study with this other girl, and we were going through the curriculum and we needed to talk about purity to these 8, 9, 10-year-old girls. And she began this thing talking about how Satan was tempting her to think about a boy. And we're not talking lust. We're talking pairing your last name with, or his last name with yours. That's what we're talking about. It's a little bizarre, but basically that's the context. I was very proud of the fact, and I think I was a late bloomer in a few respects. One of them being I did not have a real crush on a boy. I was in love for a long time until I was about 14 years old, I think. And I bragged a lot about, I've never had a crush, I thought it was something I had on other girls, that I had never had a crush on a boy. But I first noticed this one boy at church when I was 14. He would have been, I think he was 17 or something like that. So he was a little older than me. I'm always I'm older. Anyway, I noticed him. We went to this small little church, and he was one of my brother's friends. And mind you, there was a small group of boys in their teens. So it was slim pickings. It was very slim pickings. And I really wasn't around anyone else my age. So and looking back, I think about me crushing on him, and I referred to him as Rat Boy because he was not attractive. I don't know. I did not have a good track record of being attracted to attracted people. Somehow I always pick the really weird looking ones. But where it kind of started I had kind of noticed him, but where it really started was one day I'm walking into church, I'm walking in, I think I was holding my baby sister. He's standing right where you walk in the doors. He is just inside. I walk in, I see him, he looks at me, and he starts walking towards me, and I don't know what went off in my brain. When I was 14, I could not speak to men. I was terrified of them. So I did the first thing that occurred to my brain, and I ran. I booked it for the women's bathroom. It was immediately he looks at me, I looked at him, and I booked it for the women's restroom. And then I got there, and I was like, Lauren, you idiot, he was gonna talk to you. You want that? And I was like, do I? So anyway, yeah, that happened. And then he was helping out with the music for church that day, him and this other guy. And I was sitting in the back row, and he kept looking at me and smiling. And I was like I did not know what to do with myself. So from that day forward, I pined for this man, for this boy. I was pining, I was emotional, I was dreaming, and I also was conflicted, because I was I'm in sin, I like a boy. And I was humiliated. I was I cannot talk to. I kept this secret for so long. I was mortified of the fact that I liked this boy. I wouldn't even look at him because I was no one can know. And so anyways, I think I eventually admitted it to my mom out of guilt. And she gave me this this firm talking to that he was not husband material, which I'm I hate that the first response is well, you shouldn't have a crush on him because he's not going to be your future husband. It's innocent. I was 14. But anyways, I think this crush lasted for about a year. And there was one day, and here's the thing that was really funny. I knew he worked at Chick-fil-A. So every time my family went to Chick-fil-A, oftentimes we would go through the drive-thru, but our drives from our house in a rural area to the Houston area would be so long. I'd be like, can I go to the bathroom while you're going through the drive-thru? And I would run inside. Every single time we went to Chick-fil-A, I scoured that Chick-fil-A looking for Rat Boi. How much more homeschool Christian does this get? I'm scouring the local Chick-fil-A's looking for my Rat Boi. And if I saw him, would I talk to him? No. But I was hoping he would see me and he would think to himself, wow, there's the woman of my dreams. What ended up happening was probably after a year of pining for this boy, our church would have a once a month potluck kind of thing. And we had the church, sanctuary area that had a keyboard and a piano. And then there was the church fellowship hall, just think your average Baptist church in the South. And I would oftentimes, with my little friends, we would go back into the sanctuary and we would start playing the piano, because what else do you do if you're a girl in these families? Your hobby is piano. So my friends and I would go back there and we'd play our recital pieces and stuff, and show each other the songs we were writing and stuff. And so one day I'm back there and I was practicing my recital piece, and I think I was playing a song that I had made up on the piano, and out of the corner of my eye, also mind you, my little sister is in the room as well. Out of the corner of my eye, I see the door open and he slowly walks inside, and then comes and sits in the front row next to where I am playing the piano. And I'm so like overwhelmed by the fact that my crush, who I have never spoken to, is sitting in the front row watching me play piano. And I start forgetting the song that I'm playing, and I become so emotionally overwhelmed that I nearly tear up. Like, I am tearing up, and I literally cannot even look at him. I start messing up, and I just stop and like, I'm so sorry if you came in to listen. I don't remember anymore. And he's like, no, it sounded good. And so we start talking about piano and my recital and stuff. And we talked for a little bit. And I honestly can't remember most of it. It was a pretty short interaction, I'm sure. But I was like over the moon. I was like, oh my gosh, I actually talked to my crush. Like, oh my gosh. And I felt kind of guilty about it, because like, I was like, should I be talking to a boy, like even casually? Like, is this okay? And I was so grateful my sister was in the room, because I'd heard you're never supposed to be alone with a boy. So I was like, oh my gosh. And I literally told her later, I was like, thanks for being in there, because if you hadn't been, I would have had to leave, and it would have been so awkward. I'm like, what is this culture I grew up in? This is bizarre. But anyway, there's 2 more installments of key lore that happened in this era of my life. One was the momentous day where I found him at the local Chick-fil-A. I found him, my family and another family were eating at Chick-fil-A. I saw him. The way I watched this boy giving out that Chick-fil-A, I was like, there he is. It was such a big deal to me. And in hindsight, I'm like, what the hell? But it was a big deal to me back then, okay? So anyways, the final installment, I'm 15 years old, and very commonly when the baby siblings would get fussy or fidgety during church, one of the older children would take them out and walk them in the lobby, right? It was very common. And so I do that. I walk out into the lobby during the sermon holding my baby brother, and I'm just like walking him around in a circle. This boy is sitting on this bench out in the lobby, and he sits there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there he is. I don't say anything, I'm too shy. So I'm walking in a circle, right? He gets up and starts walking in a circle, kind of following me, which in hindsight, I'm like, man, that was so weird. But anyway, he finally, this is like a month or so after like that interaction in the sanctuary, he asks me, he goes, how was your piano recital? And I start telling him, we start chatting, and then the worst thing, it was innocent, it was completely innocent. My mother walks out into the lobby, and I see her, I have this sinking, my heart sinks into my gut. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. So I see my mom, I walk over to her, and I start like talking to her, and she gives me this like look, and I'm like, I'm cooked. So anyway, afterwards, it was just me, my mom, and my brother at church that day. I think we'd taken separate cars, so if the rest of my family was there, they took a different car home. But anyway, we get in the car in total silence, and I'm just sitting there like not sure what to say. I'm like so nervous. And then my mom, she finally goes, so what was that all about? And I'm like, I immediately launch into this like excuse tirade. I'm like, he was talking to me, I wasn't talking to him. He just like started talking to me, and so I didn't know what to do. And my mom then launches into this speech of like, okay, well, that's all right, but I need you to understand, he is not husband material. And then she goes into this whole like thing about how most men are corrupt and addicted to pornography, and like it was honestly a fairly graphic conversation, and I was to this day I'm fairly scarred from this conversation because it was so graphic, and I was like, I don't need to know all that. This is zest. So yeah, I look back on that and I'm like, man, I wish I would have been able to like have a reasonable understanding of the fact that when you're a teen, you're gonna have these innocent little crushes, and not have this weight of like, oh my gosh, I'm sinning. I literally, they tell girls in these circles that if Satan is tempting you to think about a boy, you should use that as, they call it a springboard to start praying for somebody so that you can take your mind off of the boy and then put it on to something else, because you shouldn't be thinking about a boy. They call it emotional purity. So anyway, I wish I'd been allowed to just have like an innocent little crush and not have like the weight of all that guilt and like it makes me kind of sad to think about now. But here's the thing. Eventually I did figure out that it's not a sin to have an innocent little crush. And the lore is honestly kind of funny. This is literally the entire lore of me and Rat Boi, like as I like to call him, because he did kind of give rat vibes. But anyways, yeah, that is some homeschool Christian fundamentalist tea from that era of my life. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see y'all in the next video.